Each time that I see you, I feel less sincere. It's like we both are standing here waiting for some truly new year. Well, I got something to tell you. I won't be here next time, but I fancy that you might be, and I'll be pretty hard to find. Don't go trying to remember the shape of my face. Instead recall once and for all the song we heard yesterday. Well, the moral of that story, the one we heard by the shore, make the most of what time you got. You now got less than before. Only thing known for certain, we can never be sure. Many are gone who never thought the time would come, who once sang on the shore. Happy 19, chaps! Paul Curran here. I hope you and all the listeners are well. Now, first things first, let's put the house in order. It was brought to my attention that in the last edition of Poetry Corner, before Christmas, I mispronounced the town from where Dylan Thomas had come, where he grew up, and which he referred to later in his letters from America. I have it on good authority that the English pronunciation of the town in South Wales is Larn, although I hear tonight that there's a Welsh translation which is more akin to Lycan. It was never going to be easy, and you live in Larn. Incidentally, after we were discussing Thomas Gray's Elegy in a Country Churchyard, I realised that I'd failed to mention that it's from that great poem that Far from the Madding Crowd was taken as the title for the 1874 book by Thomas Hardy, of course. Interesting the way that authors will choose to take other writers' lines and the ones that they pick. You remember, of course, the Wasteland would, had Eliot had his way, been called "He Do the Police in Different Voices," which is a line from Our Mutual Friend by Dickens. Ezra Pound saw sense though, and it'll forever be known as The Wasteland. That's incidental. Now, Dylan Thomas we spoke of last time, and I'm not going to read any of his work today, although I was very tempted by one poem, but I'm going to leave that. I did, however, come across this quote which I think is tremendous, and it's either a manifesto of his, which he certainly fulfilled, or it's a justification by him of what he achieved. But he said this: "Every device there is in language is there to be used, if you will. Poets have got to enjoy themselves sometimes, and the twistings and convolutions of words, the inventions and contrivances are all part of the joy that is part of the painful, voluntary work." Also, last time, I believe I mistakenly referred to the famous Robert Frost poem as The Path Not Taken. It is, of course, The Road Not Taken, but we'll be looking further at Frost in a few moments' time. First of all, with it being this start of a new year, I found this poem which I thought was wholly appropriate. It was written by Major Henry Livingston Jr. He was born in Poughkeepsie, which is spelled Poughkeepsie, and there is a letter from America where Dylan Thomas speaks of longing to be back in Larn whilst in Poughkeepsie. However, I digress. Major Henry Livingston Jr. was born then in 1748 in Poughkeepsie, and he was a member of a leading colonial New York family. Livingston worked as a farmer, surveyor, and a justice of the peace. In 1775, he enlisted in the Revolutionary Army, joining an expedition to invade Canada just a week after the birth of his first daughter, Catherine. She was the subject of his first known poem, and many other poems followed after the death of his wife, Sarah Wells, in 1783. From 1787 onwards, Livingston published many occasional and light verses in regional journals. His poems were often published anonymously or under the pseudonym R. Livingston's long poem in Anapestic meter, which, remember, is that used for limericks, which is called Account of a Visit from St. Nicholas, is commonly known by its first line, "'Twas the night before Christmas." This poem played a significant role in establishing a common set of beliefs about Santa Claus by providing a physical description of the jolly man with the white beard and by setting the number and names of the reindeer. Until recently, the poem was attributed to poet Clement Clarke Moore, 1779 to 1863, who included it in his collected poems in 1844. In Author Unknown, On the Trail of Anonymous, which was written in 2000, the scholar Don Foster gathered evidence to support Livingston as the author of the well-known poem. Okay, so this by Livingston, Henry Livingston Jr., and it's called 1819 New Year's Carrier's Address. Believe me, dear patrons, I have wandered too far without any compass or planet or star. My dear native village I scarcely can see, so I'll hide my hive like the tempest-tossed bee. Hail home, sacred home, to my soul ever dear. Abroad may be wonders, but rapture is here. My future ambition will never soar higher than the clean brushed hearth and convivial fire. Here I lounge at my pleasure and bask at my ease, full readily soothed and desirous to please, as happy myself as I happy can be. I wish all the circle as happy as me. Hark, what a clatter! The jolly bells ringing, the lads and the lasses so jovially singing. 'Tis New Year's, they shout, and then haul me along in the midst of their merry-make, juvenile throng. But I burst from their grasp, unforgetful of duty, to pay, first, obeisance to wisdom and beauty. My conscience and interest unite to command it, and you, my kind patrons, deserve and demand it. On your patience to trespass no longer I dare, so bowing, I wish you a happy New Year. Very nice. 1819. Also, you'll recall the sonnet, the wonderful scabrous sonnet by Shelley, England in 1819, which is a damning critique of the state of the nation then, and not wholly inappropriate in 2019. Robert Frost, then. Well, I mentioned that he can be heard reading his wonderful poem of 1914's second collection, north of Boston, Mending Wall. There is a recording of him delivering that in his sonorous voice with its soft American accent, and it's well worth a listen. Given the news coming across the Atlantic this first week of the new year, I thought I would share Mending Wall with you now. You will notice the similarities to Robert Frost's Christmas trees that we had before Christmas. This idea of the American small holder walking his land, talking to his neighbour, and the American vernacular, the American voice coming through. Mending Wall by Robert Frost. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen groundswell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair when they have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps, I mean. No one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring, mending time, we find them there. I let my neighbour know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go. To each the boulders that have fallen to each, and some are loaves, and some so nearly balls we have to use a spell to make 'em balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side, it comes to little more. There, where it is, we do not need the wall. He is all pine, and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offence. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly, and I'd rather he said it for himself. I see him there, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only, and the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well, he says it again. Good fences make good neighbors. Robert Frost speaking to us from 1914. Well, that's nearly it this week. However, one last thing I thought I would share with you. Given the political news coming from our own nation, I was reminded, and having looked at the Frost again, I was reminded of a sonnet that I wrote, which appeared in my second book, Repeat Fees, and is now 18 months, 2 years old, which speaks volumes when you consider its subject matter. I'll finish with this. It's called Contra Mundum Referendum. Join for that you jar. Titus Andronicus by William Shakespeare. And Seamus Heaney wrote, history says, don't hope on this side of the grave, but then, once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up, and hope and history rhyme. That was from his Cure at Troy, which is a version of Sophocles' Philoctetes, which he wrote in 1991. Anyway, this is my sonnet, Contra Mundum Referendum. General election detection zone, all on the street, any colour you choose. Green marginals, red, blue and standalone, rosettes on chest as they break in new shoes. No talk yet of a coa-little plan, nor recollection of what did not work. Questions being hurled like pancakes from pan, unaddressed, ceilings stuck unchewed on fork. It's Brepsile on Main Street again this June. Clowns round their maypoles, half-masted flags flown, Corbyn's squawks, Trumpty's unmending wall tune, as schoolgirls sing in Great Manchester town. Though I would not mind hearing one man speak. What on earth's going on, Major Tim Peake? So cast your net far from shore, trammel up what you may, Cast your net like you have no more time. Cast your net like it's your dying day.